Well, hi everyone, and thank you for attending the Free Choice Learning online information session for our certificate program here at Oregon State University. My name is Bridget Egan, and I am a staff member here in the Continuing Education Unit. So I'll be talking to you today. And then also with us is Jennifer Bachman from the Free Choice Learning Certificate Program. She's the instructor and the coordinator, and I'll turn it over to her a little bit later. But before I turn it over to Jen, first I'd like to go through the requirements for the certificate programs, as well as an overview of the courses associated with it. And then once we go through that, I'll turn it over to Jen, who can talk about the faculty that's associated with the certificate program. To complete the Free Choice Learning Certificate, participants will take 3 core courses, and then they can choose 1 elective. So the first course that will be offered in the certificate starts this April 1st, and it is the Designing Learning Environments Physical Dimensions of Free Choice Learning. And so, this course really looks at how people move through space, how exhibits are constructed, the design elements, different objects, and then how all of that sort of, influences how people learn and how they interact with different exhibits. And so for this course, some of the assignments will have students looking at the entrances and exits to different places of informal learning, like museums or aquariums or so on, to see how is it set up, how is it designed, and then students will also be doing assessments of that. The other course is examining the learner's own ideas, personal dimensions of free choice learning, and this course will launch in September of 2013. This is also an online course. The personal dimensions is really looking at how our identity, our prior knowledge, our experience, and all of those things, influence the way we learn and how we learn, and how do we use these when we're engaging visitors as sites or as learners ourselves? What is coming into play when we enter a space of informal learning? And so this course, like the physical dimensions, will be using interactive assignments and case studies in order to assess and look at, the psychology behind it, the student's own, I should say, your own sort of motivations for learning. And then the last of the core courses is Understanding Cultural Influence, and this is looking at the socio-cultural dimensions of free choice learning. And we expect this course will launch in January of 2014. And so this course looks at theories of learning, and it takes from the fields of sociology and psychology, and then it looks for how a lot of these things, a lot of our social institutions and cultural backgrounds, how do they play a part in how we learn, or how we understand, and how do we interact with spaces and exhibits. Again, this course will rely on some really interesting interactive assignments where students are looking at real-world examples of how this fundamentally influences our learning and how we interact with space. They'll also be learning from their peers in the course, because our own sort of conceptions of who we are and social stratification is one thing, but then understanding, reading about, and listening to other people's understanding and experience with this is really a great way to learn. So of the electives, we have the registration broken into 2 different options you may have noticed on our website, and one option is we have evaluation, museum, and STEM courses in that option. And so the first of these electives is developing effective evaluations. And this is a really cool course. This is a hands-on approach to really looking at how do you implement, design, and think about assessment of your work, of your site, of your agency. And this course will be team taught, and it really helps students in the free choice learning program design, assessment, and evaluation, but also look at others, their peers, to see what they're doing and how they're doing it, and then how that can be informed, again, to improve, to keep sort of pushing the learning forward. And then there's 3 other electives in this option, and one is developing STEM curriculum. And again, just as it says, the focus, although the certificate's focus is not on science and math exclusively, this particular elective will be. So this would be really good for students who are interested in STEM, bringing science and math education into their site or learning more about that in their professional development. Likewise, how to conduct research in a museum. We'll be really looking at how do we examine the practices, how do we use the museum space, informal learning space, to conduct research that can help us understand learning, why we learn, how we learn. And then the last one, which is co-taught with Carrie Carlin Morgan, and she's the director of programming at the Newport Aquarium here in Oregon, the Oregon Coast Aquarium, I should say. And in this course, we'll look at how can you use field trips and self-directed field trips, and how can you work those into the K through 12 curriculum in order, again, to get people engaged in the site and to think about what students will interact with and what they'll learn with and how that meets the greater goals of the plan and of the site. And then the other option we have is to do interpretation-based electives. And these electives come from our Master Interpretive Guide certificate program. And so there are 2 courses that you could take, either one of these, if you're more interested in that really interpretive background. The Foundation of Interpretation course also completely online, like the other ones. And in this one, students will be introduced to the background and the foundations of interpretation, and also planning, site plans, and be able to work within those, develop components, and become comfortable with reading plans and maybe adding to them. And then in the other option, the developing a message, the class will look at how do you craft a thematic oral presentation, what goes into that, how do you design objectives, and again, how does that work with, if there is a site plan, the site plan. So both of these courses, again, are online, and they are offered through the Master Interpretive Guide certification, and they can be used as electives for the Free Choice Learning certificate. So, professional development-wise, this certificate, the Free Choice Learning, is a great professional development tool. And one reason is that you leave the course with a portfolio of all of these products that not only can be used to inform your practice if you already have a job, but actually can show your proficiency and your fluency in the field if you are searching for a job. It's a really good way, if you have been doing maybe less sort of planning or less engaging visitors at this higher level. It's a great way to get into that. And you're able to, in this certificate, there's accommodation if you want to use your current place of employment, or you want to use a specific site or a specific example, that's encouraged and definitely accommodated so that the curriculum is flexible in that way. And then one of the most invaluable professional development tools is the community of practice. And so just as we'll be discussing in all the courses, learning from peers through peer review and assessment and evaluation is just a critical way to learn. And so in this course, that's what you'll be gaining. You'll have a community of peers that you can learn from and learn with, and that is something that professionally will stay with you. And we're hoping to develop connections within the course. I also want to say that for those of you who are deciding between a master's degree and a certificate, there's a lot of ways to think about it in terms of professional development. The certificate is a more affordable option, certainly, than a master's program. But the unique thing about this Free Choice Learning certificate program is that it really is a mirror of the Free Choice Learning master's degree. So they took the master's degree program and developed it specifically, for those who maybe didn't have the time or the resources, or perhaps language proficiency wasn't enough to get into the graduate school. And so all of that curriculum is coming out of the master's program, the graduate school, and is then opened up to the public in this open enrollment system. It's really cool. It's really exciting. There are some key differences. I think one of the differences is that in a master's or PhD level program, as you would expect, you would get more one-on-one with instructors, more one-on-one sort of time. But again, a unique thing about the certificate is that the instructors who develop the graduate level courses are also working on these courses. So there are lots of ways for students to interact with and work with those professors, which is really exciting.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bachman. I coordinate the free choice learning programs at OSU, and included now in those programs is this new certificate program, Free Choice Learning Certificate. My background is in college teaching and online teaching and learning in free choice settings. And then I share the stage, so to speak, with three other professors at OSU in free choice learning, John Falk, Lynn Durking, and Sean Rowe. And together the four of us make up the faculty in free choice learning here at OSU. The certificate program, well, let me back up and say, these guys have been working in the field of free choice learning for a long time, and their backgrounds in museums, learning in different kinds of doing evaluations and consulting with museums has led to the development of all of our programs here. They bring quite a bit of expertise from the field into development and teaching these programs. Our basic format, our basic concept to the certificate and the master's program, and actually our PhD program as well, they kind of travel side by side. We have two additional faculty that help us design and run our program, all of our free choice learning programs. Mariana Adams from Audience Focus, and she's an expert in the field, in the museum field for evaluations and understanding evaluations. She's helped us design one of our elective courses. And Carrie Carlin Morgan is at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, Director of Public Programs, and also a courtesy faculty at our College of Earth, Atmospheres, and Oceans Sciences. And she brings a lot of knowledge and understanding of how free choice learning institutions can connect with the school systems, the formal, informal connection, how to make the most of field trips. So she's also on board helping us design these courses. Our certificate program was designed to meet a need that we saw in our master's and PhD program, or a need that we weren't meeting, and that's to open up this content to make it available to people in all areas, not just science and mathematics education, but art, history, even more so environmental science. We already covered that somewhat, but also, well, any field that you're in, communications, science writing. I'm trying to think of past people that have been in past programs that have come to our program. Really, if you have an interest in how people learn outside of the K-12 system, then the content we cover is all about that. And we want to make this content accessible, more accessible than it has been through the graduate school. So this certificate was designed with that in mind, to make the same content accessible to more people and a broader audience.
So at this point, we'd love to open it up to your questions. And so if you use the question box on the bottom right to type in your questions, then we will start to answer them. And the one question is, what kind of interaction will there be between students? It's a question from Jacqueline. And so there will actually be quite a bit of interaction between students. And just at a basic level, there will be discussion boards that students will have to use in order to do some group discussion projects on readings. And then there will also be a lot of peer review and assessment of assignments. And so in some where you are asked to look at either a site, or you could even examine your own family, or different groups you're a part of in the sociocultural dimensions of free choice learning. Those would be things that we're going to want students to share with each other in order to to learn from each other. And so there will be quite a bit of interaction. In terms of other course interaction, there's also blog talk radio, which is a really kind of interesting way for students in the program to speak with the professors. And that can be synchronous, so happening live, and so you can call into the show. And then there are some asynchronous versions of that if you wanted to listen to recordings. And then there's always check-ins with the instructors, which is really neat. So they're seeing how you're doing. You're sort of asking questions of them. The free choice learning folks do a lot of video, and you get a view into the world of what's happening for them. So yeah, a lot of interaction. Let's see. A question is, Do people usually enroll in the elective after the 3 courses? Some people enroll in the elective after the 3 courses, but you can also do the courses in any order you want. So the 3 core courses must be taken in order to complete the certificate program, and then 1 elective. The order you do them in, how you do them, when you do them, that's totally up to you. So the physical dimensions of free choice learning is starting this April, but that doesn't mean that you have to start there. If you wanted to start in September, if that works better for your schedule, you could. The other thing is, if you didn't want to take the entire certificate program but were interested in just some courses, you can take any one of those 3 courses. If you're interested in just taking an elective, that would be something you would want to talk to Jen and the faculty about. There are some people, if they've had extensive graduate experience or work experience, could probably take just an elective, but really those are being held for the people who complete the entire certificate program. So it looks like a question is about, is this self-paced, or is there a time frame? There is a time frame for each course, so there's a start date and an end date. And so, like many online courses, there will be, benchmark dates. Your work is due by a certain time, or certain assignments are due on a certain day. But if the schedule becomes, let's say you get behind or something happens, then that's totally something you can work with the instructor on. So there are start and stop dates for these programs, but again, always flexible. Let's see, and then a question, is the certificate more valuable for those that have a job and are looking for continuing ed? And then how would you decide between certificate and master's? So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the master's degree program does give you some of that one-on-one attention with instructors that isn't going to happen as much in the certificate program. But the really interesting differences are that, the price of the certificate program is significantly less. The enrollment is not competitive, so it is open enrollment for the certificate. And again, the curriculum is a mirror. It has been, modified to meet the needs of people who work full-time, who don't have a ton of free time, but it is the same structure and curriculum as the master's degree. So it's a really interesting program. If any of you have specific questions about your own trajectory as students or your professional development questions, I would really encourage you to contact me through phone or email, and I can help you work through some of that. And anything that I'm not sure about, I can direct you to Jen, and she can help you with too. So let me see if there's any other questions. There was a question about let's see, courses in the online program being applied to the master's degree, and you cannot apply these courses that you would take to a master's degree program because these are developed as continuing education, so non-credit program. But for any folks who have started a master's degree program or have advanced education in this background, that would be something to talk to us about because there might be an equivalency. So if you wanted to complete the certificate and you already had some experience, that could definitely be something we could look at. So it looks like maybe no more questions. I wanted to just remind you that registration is open now, and we also have discounts for enrolling in the entire certificate program. But there's also discounts if you work at an institution where maybe you can get a small group together to join the certificate. There's also discounts for that. That would be greater than the discount for an individual certificate. So I would encourage you, if you have any questions about any of those things, to contact me, and I would love to talk to you about them. Thank you for joining our online information session today, and if you have any questions, please contact us.